welcome. Who all is here tonight, other than Holly and Joan?
Uh, I see Trisha's iPhone and Robin Ballhouse. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Robin Ballhouse. I have a 6th and a 7th grader at Taylor, Rail and Maddie Ballhouse.
Thank you.
I'm Trisha Frankie. I have a 7th grader, Adeline Frankie. Sorry, I'm in my car. I didn't realize it was muted.
Oh, you're fine.
And I'm going to put this mic over here so that we can have everybody in here just fine. So, but no, honestly, we wanted to get together tonight. So we're talking about right now, looking at our graduation, how we recognize students when they graduate, and making a potential change. We have run it past the board and our academic committee with the board, but wanted to get feedback from 7th grade parents because this is the first grade it would actually impact before we move forward with any sort of change whatsoever. So again, no decision has been made. We're going to kind of share some things with you tonight and try to get some feedback from you guys, because you are the people that we're recognizing, your children, and we want to make sure that we do it the best way possible. Okay. So right now, with our graduation, we have a traditional system, which is the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and we recognize our top 8 graduates. We're seeing some more schools move away from this to a different system for many different reasons, which we'll talk about tonight. And we really want to get your questions and your concerns before, any decision would ever be made. What we're kind of proposing is a transition over to what would be called a Greek system or a Latin system, depending on which, university or place you speak to or high school, which would mean we'd recognize students as summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude. It would eliminate the valedictorian and the salutatorian recognitions for the class of 2027, which would be our current 7th graders. And the reason we're speaking to 7th graders is our 8th grade students are already in classes that are high school credit classes. And now that they're in those, we could not make a change. We don't want to make a change that is kind of already in progress with the current system and the current students. Okay. So some of the reasons when we went down this path, why would we make this change? There are a lot of other high schools and school districts that are going to this. I know Ms. Stidham worked at a district that went through this process, and many others within the CHL as well. But really, it eliminates the need for children to choose classes. Right now, we're looking at students that will take classes just because of the weight of the class versus choosing classes that are things they're truly passionate about. For example, kids might choose an AP course just to maintain or improve their rank versus staying in band or staying in choir or staying in something else that they're truly passionate about. So they're kind of forced to choose. If I want that top slot, I've got to choose either go AP or continue to do something that I'm truly, truly passionate and excited about. Some other reasons would be that it really allows us the opportunity to celebrate many more students than we currently do. So right now we have our top eight graduates, which are recognized at graduation, and then the top 2 are valedictorian and salutatorian are the 2 that would actually give speeches. But the new system would allow us to recognize many, many more students. We're still working through what the cuts would be. If we did make this change for what those different designations would follow. Typically, it's based upon either a GPA or a percentile. For those cuts, we have not made those decisions. Should we move forward at this point? It would be things we'd want to work with families with as well. But, one of the upsides is you would have more students that be recognized versus our current system. Right now, there's been a big change in Ohio and some other states as well, but I know that some of you have heard about College Credit Plus courses. So with our CCP offerings, we're really excited about them. Last year we had students earn 1,515 college credit hours through CCP, which was an increase of 32% from the previous year. And we continue to feel we're going to see these changes more and more and more. And in some ways, this does impact the student's rank, and the student would be under the old system. But CCP courses also offer our kids increased opportunities, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Mrs. Ryan, would you like to speak to that at all?
CCP opportunities?
Yeah.
Sure. Can you hear me if I'm here? We have started to offer some more in-house opportunities like public speaking. We're going to offer intro to sociology. We already offer, I think it's 8 or 9 in-house CCP, which basically means our instructors are teaching Cincinnati State curriculum. They are considered Cincinnati State professors at that point, and our students are taking them for both high school and college credit. This allows that dual enrollment opportunity, allows them to get that free college credit while having their experience with a teacher face-to-face at Taylor High School. We also have students taking lots of courses online, individual courses, and we even have students that take their entire high school curriculum at the college. So they'll physically go to the college and take all of their senior year, all of their junior year. What some schools are saying is that some of their valedictorians and salutatorians are actually students that never stepped foot in their high school because they would have taken the most the highest level and the most number of classes. And I think that has caused some schools to look at the process and say, you know, is this a representation that we want, or do we want to recognize a lot of students? Previously, it used to be that we had 8 or 9 AP classes, and whoever took enough as many classes and got the highest grades was Val and Sal. But now CCP's kind of blown open the door, which is a good thing because our students are getting the academic rigor of college level classes. But I do think it warrants some change in how we recognize those students. And so that's kind of where we're coming out from the change.
Some of the questions that we do get is, would this change in any way impact scholarship opportunities for students? And you know, at this point, from what we know, what we've talked about with other places, is it would not have an impact on any scholarship for a student. We would continue to keep the internal ranking system for us, which is required for a very limited number of scholarship opportunities for students. Most do not even, you know, look at what the actual rank is. But for those that would, we would still keep that internal class rank that would be available for students and families should they apply for a scholarship that would need that.
Yeah, and I could just speak on that, Mark. A lot of schools will say, you know, like Taylor's number 37 might be like another school's number 5 in the class. It's very, you know, it's very subjective as far as class rank goes because of what curriculum that school has in place. And so at least half the schools in Ohio, I believe, don't rank anymore. And so colleges can't really consider it when you're talking about scholarships opportunities. Like Mr. Smiley said, I think that there might be 1 or 2 Val-Sal applicate or scholarships out there that I've seen, not at the popular universities around here, but we certainly would still never want to, you know, take that away from a student, and we could keep that internally. But what we're hearing from the colleges is that class rank is really not a consideration anymore. It's more GPA, rigor of classes on the transcript, and then things like their resume, their involvement in clubs and sports leadership opportunities, things like that.
So another question comes down to like that actual graduation day and who gives the speeches. And we know that's a tradition that we definitely want to maintain, absolutely. And typically we have speeches that come from our senior class president, our student body president, our valedictorian, and our salutatorian. So if this change did occur, the speeches would now come from still the senior class president, still the student body president, but students that fell in that summa cum laude or the top level would be able to apply and audition to give a speech to the graduating class. We would pick 2 students to do so. We also find out that sometimes our valedictorian and our salutatorian are not very excited to actually give that speech, and sometimes, you know, it's a struggle to get them prepped to actually do so. So it would allow for a greater number of people to kind of have that opportunity to speak to their class. And again, we would still have the same number of speeches. It just wouldn't necessarily come from 1 and 2. It would come from people within that range of students that would actually give that speech. So right now, our proposal for a timeline, and again, we want feedback, and it's not a decision that's made. It's a decision we want to, you know, hear from people about and really think about before we move this direction. Would be that our current class and next year's class would have no change in any recognition. The class of 2024 through 2026 would maintain the current recognitions, but we'd also recognize students under the Latin system or the Greek system, whichever, term is used, within the graduation program. So you would have within the program, it would still have valedictorian and salutatorian, but we would also, in addition, have the recognitions that we're proposing. And then the class of 2027, which would be our current seventh graders, would have students recognized only under a Latin system versus our current traditional system. So right now, I know that was a lot that we kind of pushed out and we shared. And really what we're looking for is your questions, your feedback, anything else that, you're thinking of or concerns or, your thoughts in regards to making this transition. We know it's, it's a long held tradition to kind of go with the Val-Sal. But again, there's some things within our current, day to day at a high school that make us believe it might be the time to make a transition. So anybody that's on our Zoom or in person that has questions, comments, concerns? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, here. Absolutely.
Well, I guess it's not that. The current system, you get, is it like 5 credits? Like what, how
Would you-
No, I just was wondering, the current grading or GPA, is it like if you take AP classes or the CCP, do you get like 5 credit hours per day versus 4?
No, so it's the weight of the grade. So basically your GPA would be impacted. So but in terms of hours earned at a university, which is kind of, we're not saying one's better versus the other, but within the hours a student would earn towards college, with a CCP class, it's a semester and you're in 3 hours. An AP class is a year long, it's 3 hours, plus you have to get a grade on the AP test to get those 3 hours.
But our rank is on a weighted GPA.
But our rank,
That's what I meant. I meant 5, like a 4 is 7. Or that's what I meant.
yeah, correct. On the weighted system, but our weight for CCP and our weight for AP would be the same.
Yeah, so basically what they say, legally, the state of Ohio says that if you offer your CCP class, dual credit, has to be awarded the same weight as your highest course in that subject area that you offer, right? So it has to be weighted higher, just as high as your AP. So for instance, somebody might go take intro to drawing at Cincinnati State, like an elective, but they would receive the same weight, because we have to, as like an intensive AP drawing class, if that makes sense. And so that's why a lot of schools are switching too, because some kids are taking these intro level classes at, a 2-year college, and legally we have to award them the same weight and impact on their GPA as if they're taking like our highest level AP class. Does that make sense?
Don't know this. Looking loud, if it's like 3.9, 3.8, the mag.
The question came down to be what when we have the divisions between, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude, what those would be. We know that some universities and some high schools, so both directions, some do it by GPA, some do it by percentile in the class. And right now we've not gone to the point. Right now we're trying to get feedback before we'd ever talk about that. But when you look at GPA, either direction, it recognizes more students. Like a lot of universities will say you have to be the 95th percentile and above is summa cum laude. The next level is 85 and above, and 75 to 85 would be cum laude. That's one direction. Another one has GPA cutoffs, and we've not even gone down the route of, what we would do in terms of a cut. Right now we're just trying to see what people's thoughts are. I do think that, with the growth and kind of the inception of what we're seeing with CCP, it does kind of change the game a little bit in some ways, just because we do have kids that are taking these higher level classes, which we want them to take, right? But it also kind of the old system, when that was not even around, it kind of changes the game a little bit. Anybody? What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions from people on our Zoom tonight, or Joan or Holly? Does anybody have anything they would like to add?
No, I don't have anything. I think I like just listening to parents and kids just with the way things are going and having to choose between AP and CCP and worried about all of that. I think this is a better way to go. It does get more kids recognized. It seems a little bit more fair. There are a lot of people that don't know how to play the class choosing game. So this takes that element out of it. So all kids have a fair shot.
Thanks, Holly. One question, this is Joan Stidham, I'm the curriculum director. We can also talk further about what that recognition would be besides listed in the program. Would it be a cord, a different color cord? Would it be some physical symbol that would also recognize the levels at the graduation ceremony as well? So there's a lot of decisions to be made, but I applaud Mark for moving forward with this, and we had a big long discussion about where it should start, and we really felt like 7th grade was where to begin these conversations, because that class hasn't dipped its toe into high school courses yet, but they're on track to do that. So we have to plan this many years in advance in order, we think, to be fair to the student body.
We do have a parent here that has an outlier, that has a student currently in a high school class. And we have that from time to time, but we also know there's a kind of the majority of the students right now would be looking at 8th grade in those high school credit classes. We have some outliers that, do take high school classes a little bit early. But again, I think through this system, it's not going to impact them negatively. It would just be a different recognition system than currently we have. If you hear that in the background, it sounds like we've got the stage crew doing a little bit of work on the set. So, any other questions from people on the Zoom?
Feel free to unmute. If you do think of questions, you are welcome to reach out to Holly or Mrs. Sims, Mr. Smiley, or myself. We can talk through ideas that you may have or questions or concerns at any time as we move forward. There's no official board policy on how we recognize students. So the board is aware of these changes, but they're not going to vote or act on it because there's not an official policy. So that's why we thought we'd just start with this meeting.
And I think, Joan, that this is a decision that doesn't have to be made today. It's got to be made probably by the spring, looking forward, so we can communicate it to families effectively. So, if anybody on this has, anybody that they share it with that wants to have more information, just ask them to reach out. We're happy to talk to people. Again, we don't want to make a change that's not going to be supported by our community, but also we do see a benefit potentially in transitioning from the traditional system to a new system. So we had a question about would the top 8 or the top 10 silver recognition. They would up until your children's class, and at that point it would just change, and the recognition instead of top 8 would be over a certain GPA, over a certain percentile of the class would be the ones recognized. So it'd be pretty similar, honestly. So like when you're looking at a top 10, instead it would be the top 5 percentile. If you have to take the number of kids, rank them in 1 to 100 essentially, and then you choose that number of kids, or you take the GPA cutoff and it's that GPA and above. So it'd be similar. It just wouldn't necessarily be 8. It could be 8 one year. It could be 15 the next. It just kind of depends on where they fall. So, yeah. So we had a question about a survey as a follow-up. I think what we're planning on doing is sending out the Zoom. And once the Zoom goes out, just seeing what feedback we get, and then kind of from there going back to our board or academic committee with what we hear. Right now it's we want people to kind of digest and think about, pros, cons, and let us know. And then, you know, from there, make a decision hopefully by the spring on what we're going to do. So. Okay. Right. Well, Joan or Holly, do you have anything else this evening?
No, I don't.
Me neither.
Okay. Well, so we will close out right now, and then and Joan, we'll talk about how we get this out to other families and try to get some additional feedback, and we will continue to be in touch with you guys, kind of what we're thinking moving forward. But we do appreciate everybody that was here tonight and for being on, and also for your questions. So we'll be in touch soon.